Thank you everybody for joining us for our Agile Fleets Workshop Wednesday. Today we're going to be talking about building your fleet management playbook for fleet management success. Today I am filling in for Kristen Sonderman, who is a little under the weather today. She lost her voice. She is with us, and you can definitely ask questions in the chat. But just wanted to let you know that she was excited to do this presentation, but then had no voice today. So I will try and be her voice for her. So for those of you who are new, welcome to Workshop Wednesday. So Workshop Wednesday is Agile's monthly Fleet Commander Knowledge series. Our webinars are scheduled monthly on the third Wednesday from 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Your feedback is also needed to identify topics for monthly webinars. We're always looking for what you want to know more about, so we do encourage you to share that information with us. So at the end, we'll be having a QR code that we will send you, and just let us know what you're interested in learning by scanning the QR code with your smartphone at the end of our meeting. Before we begin, we just have a couple of house rules. The webinar is being recorded and it is made available after the session. Your mic will be muted during the webinar, and you will be able to also chat with us during it. And a recording of this webinar will be available on our YouTube channel, and a copy of the slides will also be provided in 1 to 2 business days. Again, we love your questions and insight. So although your mic is muted, we still want to hear from you throughout the workshop. So with that, we do invite you to click on the chat button in the meeting and go ahead and put any comments or questions that you have in the chat. We do ask that you please make sure you put your name as well, because it does not always come through, and it really is beneficial to know exactly who we're talking to. So again, the speakers, my name is Kathy Willick, and I'm the Senior Director of Client Success. And I'm excited to have Kristen Sonderman with me as well. And she's a Senior Client Success Manager, and she's fairly new to our team. She's about 6 weeks in and doing great. So together, we are your client success team here at Agile Fleet, and we look forward to helping you through all of your fleet goals. So our agenda today is we want to really understand what goes into a playbook. So how does that playbook relate to accountability charts that we talked about last week or last month? And we're going to give you some examples of a process within the playbook. So first, let's take a quick overview of our accountability chart review from last month. So last time we met, we outlined accountability charts and main responsibilities. So we identified all the available seats in the organization and helped with the understanding of the true headcount. That helps us to strategically prepare for our growth. So it helps show value of those individuals who take on multiple roles. So we wanted to clarify those roles and responsibilities so that accountability chart is clear. We know who is responsible for what. We have those clear reporting lines. We then facilitate efficient decision-making and problem-solving. So helping people know who to work with, how to get things done, and so forth is so important. So now we're going to really take a good close look and expand on these in the playbook. So that fleet procurement specialist in the fleet finance and admin, they oversee different vehicle acquisitions, leases, and vendor contracts, the fuel and expense analysis, tracking fuel costs, maintenance expenses, and the different financial metrics. And then also, the fleet administrator, they manage the whole fleet. So what documentations, reporting, driving records, and so forth. So that's just some examples of the fleet finance and administration's key roles that we're going to take a little closer look at and go from those responsibilities to actually putting those into the playbook that you can keep track of for your staff. So with that playbook, again, it's kind of like coaching, right? So in business, a playbook refers to a comprehensive guide and a strategic document that outlines the processes, your best practices, and tactics for achieving those specific goals. So it's essential that a blueprint helps that team navigate challenges, standardize operations, and maintain consistency across projects or departments. So for example, a sales playbook might include strategies for approaching potential clients, handling objections, and closing deals. A marketing playbook could have such things as, detailed plans for brand promotion, talk about the customer engagement, and who's going to create that content for that marketing promotion. So playbooks are a valuable tool for onboarding new employees, scaling your operations, and ensuring that everyone is aligned in the same strategy. They're designed to be adaptable and evolving as your business grows or market conditions change. And have you encountered one in your work or at home, something to create one? So in the chat, I'd like you to do a 1 if you currently have any playbooks for your business operations in your fleet, and put a 2 if you don't have any current playbooks in your fleet. So put a 1 or a 2, open up the chat. And on this one, you don't have to put who you are. Just open up the chat. Do you currently have playbooks? Do you currently have those directions and that guidance as to what to do if A happens or if B happens? SIU, awesome. Thanks for responding. 2. So it looks like a lot of you don't. So today is going to be really helpful because it's just like having a plan to get to your goals, right? You got to have that playbook to be able to make things happen. So it looks like a lot of you are 2s. So good. This will be helpful. So it's just that coaching, right? So we're going to document and outline the processes, the best practices, and those tactics for achieving your specific goals. How do we win this game of fleet? This helps us keep everyone on the same page, and it just makes scaling and onboarding new employees and so forth easier because you know exactly what needs to be done. So what goes into that magic playbook, whether it's at Agile or whether it's at home? You can have playbooks for your everyday life, just like you do for work. So the first thing is you want to have that objective and purpose, and we'll take a closer look at these shortly. Then you want to make sure you have the roles and responsibilities down. And then what tools and resources do you need to be able to overcome those objectives and make those happen? And then the process and the workflow. Kind of reminds me like last night, I was helping put some electricity in my daughter and son-in-law's garage. I had to drill the holes before I could put the electrical wire through and so forth. There's the process and the way you got to go through it. And you can't just lay the wire in there. You got to put the holes through your studs first, otherwise your drywall is not going to go up. So same thing in the game of fleet, right? We got to make sure that we have that plan and that we're doing that process and workflow in the proper order. Otherwise, we have to pivot and maybe go back. And then how do we reevaluate what we did? So any good goal, once you get accomplished and so forth, or don't accomplish, but once you're at the end, you have to go back and relook at that. So those metrics, those KPIs, do an annual review. Make sure that you're looking at those and are they still current? Are you collecting the right ones? So examples and case studies and so forth are always a good way to do it too. So what has worked for others? If you can find information like that, and we do have information on our website, different case studies and so forth, that's another good resource to be able to say, hey, has this person implemented this? And if so, what was the result? So let's take a look at, breaking down this playbook for the objectives and the purpose. So with that, first we need to define the primary goals and the process that we're aiming to achieve, right? So we need to reduce fuel consumption, ensure compliance with regulations, enhance safety amongst the fleet. So specify the types of fleets covered as well. Is it delivery vehicles that you're looking at? Is it service vans? Is it trucks? Why does this exist and what problem does it solve? So now we're going to take a look at that breakdown, that objective and purpose, and what might it look like when you have it written down. So oftentimes people call it an introduction, maybe. So this is the process that is telling us to outline the steps for a reservation. So we're going to take an example of outlining steps for reservations throughout this playbook, and then we're going to show you the end result at the end and what it looks like all together. And just remember, Kristen, if there's anything I'm missing, feel free to chime in the best you can or type it in the chat so I can address it.
You're doing wonderful, Kathy, and this is why
Okay.
I'm not talking.
Okay. So the introduction, the process is, you're telling us what is the process. The process we're going to look at today is the steps to make a reservation. Okay. The purpose is to provide a clear, efficient, user-friendly process for reserving vehicles. And we want to ensure proper utilization, accountability, and satisfaction for your stakeholders. So as you have those all outlined through your internal audit team findings as well, right? So you want the customer satisfied, but audit might want to make sure that you have the proper, paperwork or proof behind who took what vehicle. So understanding that whole purpose for your organization is important. So list of key personnel such as fleet managers, dispatchers, drivers, and maintenance teams, along with their specific duties. We want to take a look at each one of those to clearly define those roles and responsibilities. So who is responsible for executing what part of the strategy? So in making a reservation, especially if you're using a key box system, the dispatcher might help you make the reservation, but they aren't necessarily going to be the ones getting it out of the cabinet, right? So if you have key control, that's the end user. So each person has a part in that process, right? So clearly outline who's responsible for executing each part of that strategy. And this builds off that accountability chart that we were talking about last month. And so just look at the team structure and the individual roles. And it's also important to, especially to keep current, as you know, people's roles change, people move, people retire, and so forth. It seems like since COVID, there were a lot of retirements in the past 5 years and so forth. So to keep your documents, pretty consistent, it's nice to use titles or functions and try and avoid specific names. So I see Ronnie Katz is on the call with us. Try and avoid Ron takes this step, right? Instead, it would be Senior Director of Sales. And that would be how you would, put that specific name in your document. So make sure that you use the function or title as much as you can versus specific names. But Ronnie Katz, you cannot go anywhere. You're staying right with us. All right, so this is an example again of what you may enter here. So your program might run deeper and you may have, different players or other positions involved as well. But if we're taking a look at the reservation process and the roles and responsibilities, so the driver equals employees authorized to reserve and drive company vehicles. The requester is someone that submits a reservation request on behalf of the driver. The fleet coordinator is the employee responsible for monitoring and approving reservations, dispatching vehicles out and in, and verifying conditions of vehicles. And then the fleet manager is the employee responsible for the oversight of the reservation process and reporting of the KPIs. So if you look, all of this is all on one thing, right? This is all about a reservation. But there's, if you look at the driver's getting where they need to go to do their job. And then you go to the fleet manager is looking for KPIs and statistics and so forth. So there's a very difference in what they're looking for in this reservation process and what their part or their role is in this process. So the process is important to so many people, but in different ways. So you could also include other people potentially outside of your typical processes and workflow. So like troubleshooting system access could include support from your IT department. So it could be some additional resources are needed to carry out certain processes for certain software or templates or websites. So another example here is in the playbook, in your fleet playbook. You all are using Agile Fleet. Several of you bill, but that billing goes into yet another system, such as Workday or KMS and so forth. So other resources might apply to your playbook besides just one tool. So don't be afraid to list all those tools out. Hopefully that makes sense. So let's break down the example a little bit more. So in this reservation process, we have the tools and resources. Sorry about that, I went a little too fast. So Fleet Commander, we have the key box and kiosk system. We have the vehicle pre-trip report and the vehicle post-trip report. So there again, just in those tools and resources, there's 4 different things there that you're taking a look at in that reservation process. So really break down each part of the process. So let's take a look here at vehicle maintenance protocols. So okay, sorry. Some of these, this wasn't my PowerPoint and I apologize. Some have little leaders going in, and so it's messing me up as to if the diagram's coming all at once. So I apologize. That is me. So with this, let's take step-by-step instructions for completing the task, and they should be detailed enough for anyone to follow. So if we were doing vehicle maintenance protocols, we're going to detail the preventative maintenance schedule. We would do a checklist for inspections and procedures for addressing any mechanical issues that are found. And then we're going to provide guidelines for tracking and managing repairs to ensure uptime. And then driver management and training might include outline recruitment processes, onboarding plans, an ongoing training program focused on safety and efficiency. You're going to include driver policies such as hours of service, behavior, monitoring, and communication guidelines. And then also on compliance and safety, you're going to provide a checklist of legal requirements, including license permits and regulation for vehicle operations. So you're going to share all those protocols with accident reporting and investigation, as well as driver safety. So as you're doing that workflow, and that's a lot of stuff, right? So there's a lot of like checklists and this and that for this different steps in this example. So with that, feel free to use screenshots when you're documenting your processes. Screenshots are always helpful. Be as detailed as possible without overdoing it. I always felt like screenshots and then like some highlights are really important. And when you're writing the playbook, try and have someone else look it over and have them read it and see if it makes sense to them. Because sometimes you're so ingrained to Fleet and so ingrained with your day-to-day and knowing how to use the system that you might not see that it could be changed, worded differently to make it sound easier and so forth, and flow easier. So always having like a second set of eyes or a recently new employee kind of look at it and, have them kind of follow the directions and see if they get the end result of what you're looking for. That kind of helps know if your processes and so forth are flowing properly. And again, it goes back to as well that, at the end of your goal or at the end of every year, recapping what do I need to do different and so forth. So communication can be the same way. So screenshots, standard rules, and so forth. So here is another example, and this is one that's charted. So we're going to do two different examples here that break down the steps within a process. So this example here is with a grid view. So this outlines the steps for who's responsible for each step, and then any notes that are important to that step. So in this example, step 2, email notifications sent to the driver and immediate supervisor is important because this helps meet the audit requirement. So sometimes people think, oh, I'm getting too many emails. Well, sometimes that email is required. And so having that in the process and why is so important. So with that, you can see again, it's a chart version, but then next we can do a different version. So this is just a simple step-by-step process. So with this, you can get the same results, but it just has a little bit different look or feel. So the bullets are going to outline the step-by-step process. So it's what works for you. So these here can be more specific, and they can provide step-by-step direction for requesting a vehicle, assigning a vehicle, etc. And you can make this as robust and in-depth as you like, or you can just keep it simple. But keep in mind, it just needs to remain flexible and adjustable for how things change. So for example, several of you have been getting quotes recently for the Smart Fob box. Okay, Smart Fob, when you pick up a vehicle and when you return it, is going to be ever so slightly different, but you might have to update your playbook, right? Just so people understand. So instead of turning the key lefty-loosey, righty-tighty, when you're extracting a key or returning a key, it's going to be more plug and play. But the light will come on where you need to remove it. But when you go to put the key back, you can put it in any open space. So that's a change. So that's an example of where your playbook needs to be fluid, and you can go back in and make those changes. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. So let's kind of break down the playbook with metrics and KPIs. So how are you monitoring fuel efficiency, idle times? When recording maintenance, are you monitoring costs of repairs? Are you monitoring downtime associated with those repairs? And reservations, are you monitoring the number of reservations managed, the number of cancellations you're having, the number of late returns? So those metrics and KPIs, just highlight how success will be measured. So it's important to know what you're going to measure, but more importantly, how you're going to measure and consistency in that measurement. So oftentimes too, like most of you have heard, like in the utilization reports, where you can put in, is it a 24-hour-a-day grid that you're looking at, or is it a 12? Are you going to include weekends and holidays? Are you not? Those metrics and KPIs, based on how you click those boxes, are going to be completely different if you click those boxes a different way the next month. You're going to be comparing apples to oranges instead of apples to apples. So that's why you have the playbook. That's why you have the screenshots. That's why you have the how-to. So you can keep on a straight basis and make sure that you're monitoring everything well. And this really helps too for when you bring new employees in to be able to train them. So this here is, more of the chart or grid type again, and it breaks down, the frequency of the different measurement types of KPIs and the different reports that these fleet managers can utilize to measure your KPIs. So with this is telling us in our playbook that the manager will monitor daily activities through the Fleet Commander dashboard. And the fleet manager will also run the following reports monthly to identify trends with the vehicles. So it tells you what that vehicle name is, what that vehicle report does, what type of report that is. So statistics, very good indicator that it will give you different KPI information. And then how do you navigate there in the Agile system to extract that data so you can be making sure that you're following those KPIs and being able to report to management all the great things you're doing in fleet. So with this as well, in the examples and case studies here, so how do you use these effectively? So you want to make sure that you select relevant examples. So ensure the examples or case studies that you use are aligned with the topic or process that you want to discuss. So they should resonate with your target audience, what it is that you're trying to tell them. Keep it concise, provide enough detail to explain the content and outcome, but avoid overwhelming them with too much information. And highlight key takeaways, emphasize the aspect of the example that directly relates to the principle being demonstrated. So, illustrate the principle that's easy to understand, build the credibility by showing the concepts rooted in practical real world experience and KPIs, and engage the audience by making the material more tangible and relevant to their own situations. So how can you do that? So in breaking down, again, this portion here, we have a good story. So this is one that I'm going to let Kristen really wanted to tell this, but I don't know if she's going to be able to talk it out. So Kristen can just shake her head yes or no. She told me this on a recent client visit, and she wanted to use this as an example, but it's kind of near and dear to her heart. So I was going to let her say it if she can make it through.
All right, we'll give this a try. I'm going to read a little story. A manager that I used to work for early in my career shared this with me, and it kind of stuck with me as I've moved from position to position and, created efficiencies and processes. It's just something that I think really rings true for a lot of us. Okay, so the story is called Cutting Off the Ends of the Ham. A young girl was watching her mother bake a ham for a family gathering and noticed her mom cutting off the ends before placing it in the oven. "Mom, why do you cut the ends off before baking the ham?" she asked. Hmm, sorry. I think it helps soak up the juices while it's baking. I'm not sure though. It's just the way your grandma always did it, so I've just always cut them off. Why don't you call grandma and ask her? So the little girl phoned her grandma and asked, "Grandma, Mom is making a ham and cutting off the ends before placing it in the oven. She said that it's probably to help soak up the juices, but wasn't sure. She said you'd know because she learned how to cook from you." The grandma said, "That's true. I do cut off the ends of the ham before baking, but I'm not sure why either. I learned how to cook from my mom. You should ask her." So the inquisitive little girl called her great-grandmother and asked, "Great-grandma, Mom and Grandma said they learned how to cook a ham from watching you. Do you cut off the ends of the ham to help it soak up the juices?" The great-grandmother chuckled. "Oh, no, sweetie. I just never had a pan big enough to hold a whole ham, so I always had to cut off the ends to make it fit."
Thank you. I know I pushed you there, but I know you really wanted to say this story. So what a great example that story is, right? Of we're doing it just because we've always done it that way, right? Not finding the root cause of why you do something. So that feeds into the fact of ensure your playbook stays relevant, right? Kind of know that why. And establish a timeline for regular reviews and updates. And be sure to consider new technologies, regulations, and business needs, as you're making those decisions. So one thing I always told my my staff and so forth, you know, with Agile, because there are a lot of different customizations and so forth you can do. I would always tell them, I am open to changes, but just bring the change to me first so we can discuss it and just know if that change has any effect in the billing report that that technician might not be aware of, or in a reservation that somebody else might not be made aware of. So with that, just making sure that you're reviewing it, considering the whole picture and so forth. And then, yeah, it's great. That's how new ideas and that's how progress happens, right? And so I truly welcome that. And you want to welcome those new processes. You don't want to always do what you've done. You don't want to always cut the ends off the ham, because these days hams are getting pretty expensive, right? And you want every bite of that ham. And I see Cameron just came in. So Cameron, you're gonna have to ask me later what the ham story is, because it's gonna sound really strange when you're just coming in just now. But anyway, make sure you know why you're doing what you're doing. And if you need to make changes, absolutely do it. But just make sure you're thinking big picture. So again, an example then process in the playbook. So this is, once your process is complete, this is what a finished product could look like. So we at Agile Fleet are tasked with doing the same process, right? We're tasked with making our playbooks for all of the different things that we do and the different processes that we do. If we ask a question, there have been several times that I've been told, well, what does the process say? Well, that's a great question. So let's go to the process and see what that process says, right? Again, just trying to keep everybody on the same page. So sometimes it's easier to just answer the question, but that's not necessarily how we'll learn. So again, this just goes over, you know, it talks about reserving a vehicle, picking up a vehicle, returning a vehicle, reporting in the KPIs. So this is just a good example of putting it all together in a package and what that visual will look like. And as we talked about earlier, we talked about how some might be in graph form, some might be in bullet form, but it's okay to mix the two, right? You can totally mix the two. Okay, so I want to go to the chat for everybody, and you can stay unidentified if you want. That's fine for this particular one. So if you were to write a playbook today for one of your processes in Agile or in your fleet, what would be the first process you would want to write a playbook for? So if you were to start this process right now, what is the first playbook you would want to write to get everybody on the same page and to make sure your process is documented? I'm going to give you a little chance to think. And as you know, I do wait and let you type, and I will let you do it anonymous. What would be the first play that you would want to write? I know you're all out there, and I know it's a hard question, and you like ones or twos better. But I want to see if any of you have an example of what you would like to go through for a process. Is there a certain process or procedure that you're currently having troubles with? This is one of the first ones I would do. How to run billing if you bill. Billing can be tricky, right? There's pre-bill, there's final bill, there's multiple different things. Okay, you all are being shy on me. There you go. Thanks, Ron. Creating, communicating, and tracking PM compliance. I love it. What are some other ideas? With HR, documenting pre-hire process per prospective employees who drive as a core responsibility of their job. I love that one. And I think that one is very pertinent to a lot of you. We have several clients right now that are moving to Workday. Workday seems to be taking over the world in financial management systems at a lot of universities and so forth. With that, there's a lot of redundancies in MVRs and so forth. So a person hired where they use Workday is going to have a motor vehicle record check as soon as they're hired. Then they're going to have a motor vehicle record check when they decide that they want to use a vehicle in Fleet. Then they might have another record check because they're a CDL driver. So you just spent 3 times the amount of money you needed to on getting an MVR for one person. So how can you document or get that process so everybody's talking to each other, whether it be through an API or some other method? So you know that these people have permission to drive and have a current MVR. So breaking down processes like that can be really good. So I love that example. Requirements of drivers on behalf of the university. Again, that's an excellent one. So our students, as a lot of you are universities, some are government. I know in a university setting, there's usually undergrads and grad students. Sometimes undergrads have different rules than grad students. So sometimes undergrads, the rules are, or the MVR is only good for 6 months, whereas for a full-time student or a grad student, it's 1 year. How do you decipher that? How do you get that in the system? Very confusing. So when you start breaking down that process and have the right players in the process, and this brings up a very good point too, in that one, so requirements of drivers on behalf of the university. So when you're writing this, you probably have to talk to your risk management, right? You also might have to talk to legal. So some of those outside resources that we were talking about earlier in the planning process to be able to help you get dialed in on exactly what you need to do. But with that, you can really find efficiencies. You can find where redundancies are and how you can become more efficient overall as an institution or organization. Great ones. Any others? I appreciate it. I know people don't like to necessarily respond, but I can tell you when you do things like that, it does help others because they have questions too. And I try not to make it too intimidating by answering, but I know it sometimes can be. So thank you. I appreciate you being willing to put yourself out there. Okay, so any questions that anybody has right now before we go on to a couple other things before we close today? Okay, I am going to put a question out there and the answers are 1 or 2. So with that, you don't, I said you had to put your name, but put your name if it's a question. For any of these voting things, you don't have to put your name. You can just put a 1 or a 2. How many are currently already signed up for Command 2025? That's going to be this October. If you're already signed up and committed, please put a 1 in the chat. If you are not signed up, please put a 2 in the chat. There we go. I should see some of these ticking up now. Awesome. Okay. Wonderful. So if you are signed up, do a 1. If you're not signed up, do a 2. Okay. So with that being said, you know, we're going to talk about that in a little bit. So you can continue to vote a 1 if you're already signed up, a 2 if you're not signed up. Okay. And we'll talk about that then in a little bit. So I'll give you some time to put your answers in there. So next month, I just want to let you know our workshop Wednesday for the next month is going to be talking about our new release, Fleet Commander 5.13. So with that new release, we're going to be telling you any tips and tricks and changes that you need to have. But it does require some changes of URLs and so forth on your site. So you do need to pay attention to this next update. And this is something that our team is here to help you get through that update. You will know when the update's coming because IT will send out the information about it. But just to let you know, this one, you will have to make some changes. So if all of a sudden your system looks a little wonky one day, it might be because you were updated and we had told you, but maybe didn't reach out or didn't get a partnership. So please make sure that you pay attention to any updates you see coming for 5.13. We will do as much outreach as we can to make sure everything works smoothly for you, but just want to let you know this one does require some input on your part. We want to thank you for your partnership. So there's a lot of people behind us. You get to see, Todd, Kristen, and I quite often, but there's a whole team behind us, right? Like we can't do what we do without everyone else. So it's important to know that there's a whole team behind you. So thank you for that. How can we help? Our Kristen and I are here to help you. We want to help you navigate through any custom integrations, if there's any billing information that you need help with and so forth. I do not know who's moving the screen. I'm not even touching and it is changing. But to get help, there's a couple different ways you can get help. So you can email client success at cs@agilefleet.com. Or Kristen and my emails are also individually there. I can tell you I personally prefer the personal email just because I do get it quicker. But then that day-to-day support would be contact the Agile support team. So if for some reason you can't add a user or you forget how to do something, they're your first line of defense for those quick answers. They can help you with screenshots and so forth, but they're on staff 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday Eastern Time. And they're there to help, and they're amazing. We got some great folks on that team. Okay, so here we are, Command 2025. I really highly encourage you to go to Command 2025. So the conference is going to be held Tuesday, October 7th through Thursday, October 9th. And it's going to be in the lovely University of Minnesota in Minneapolis. It is a major Delta hub, so it is very easy to fly in and out of. And we will have different clients presenting. There's a lot of networking opportunities. We'll be talking about new products where we've come, and it's our 25th anniversary. So it will be a very fun time. And we have lots to celebrate. But I wanted to remind you, and reason I wanted to know if you were signed up or not yet, is that the early bird pricing ends soon. So that early bird pricing ends May 31st, 2025. So you really want to, save some good chunk of change and get signed up now. And it includes a lot of the meals. We have the first day, the pre-conference. There's the customer advisory board. There's a new user training if you have new staff that you want to send them to. There's going to be a CAFM class that people can take if they want. And then Tuesday evening will be our kickoff. We'll have a brief reception, and then we're going to have a dinner, and we're going to have a t-shirt swap. Really helps you just to relax, get to know everybody and so forth, kind of that fun white elephant Christmas game where the shirt can be stolen a couple times and so forth. Just kind of gets people, talking to each other and so forth. So that's kind of fun. And then 2 solid days of learning about the system, what's coming in the system, how people are using the system currently to change their fleets and excel their fleets and make them more efficient. So I highly encourage you to sign up for that. I know marketing has recently just sent out a reminder that had the QR code, but you can also go to our website and you can look for it on our website as well. Other resources, agilefleet.com has a lot of online resources with webinars, user groups, case studies, white papers. So again, you can go look at some of those best practices that other peers are doing. And then the knowledge base, FC Drive, that's a wonderful tool. It has a lot of articles, how-to videos and so forth of being able to do different things in the system. And the videos are just really short clips, about 3 minutes long, just to really help you get in there, see how to do it, and then apply it right away. We also have our YouTube channel. The YouTube channel is available, obviously, 24/7. You can subscribe to our channel, and there's lots of different videos on there, and all the Workshop Wednesdays go on there as well. Then we have Workshop Wednesday. So again, every third Wednesday of the month, and we would love to hear from you as to how you would like Workshop Wednesdays to go and what you would like to learn. And we want to share your success, right? So any success stories that you have, we would love to highlight those to our other clients and, do a splash for your higher ups, right? You guys are all doing a lot of great things, I know, in your fleet. So let us help you promote those. We're also social, so connect with us on LinkedIn, X, Facebook, YouTube, all those good things. All right, here's where I need you to take out your camera and please snap a quick photo of the QR code. And please let us know, how are we doing? What can we do to make your experience better? We hope that you can rate us, on a 9 or a 10 to refer us to clients. If you can't, we really need to know why. What can we do to make it better? Because we are here for you. We appreciate your business, and you are so important to us at the Agile Fleet family. If you can take a minute to fill out this QR code, it takes less than a minute to fill out the brief survey that this QR code will take you to. But with that, it really helps us. It helps us in planning. It helps us in our annual KPIs and so forth, because we have to make sure, we stay at a certain level of or above. Just how you send out your surveys through the email tool and, fill in your dashboard with all that good feedback. This is our dashboard for our feedback. So if there's anything that you can do to take that picture and fill out the report that pops up with that QR code, we would greatly appreciate it. So I'll give you just a little bit of time here.
Hey, Kathy, something
Yeah.
to mention on the last slide too. If you're following us on one of the social media platforms, the team just posted a justification letter to help agencies justify going to command. So if you're looking for help stating your case for why you should come visit us for command, there is a justification letter that Agile has shared on our LinkedIn page as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. We might even be able to, Mike or Anna, are you able to drop that into the chat, that link real quick? We'll see, I'm kind of putting them on the spot. If not, that's okay. It is on our website. So you can go to our LinkedIn, our Agile Fleet LinkedIn. If you're connected with me on LinkedIn, I know I forwarded it. Ah, there we go. Look at that. Thank you, Kristen. Isn't it amazing how long those names can be? All right. Well, thank you, everyone. We really appreciate you being part of Workshop Wednesday. I know Kristen could have done it better, but I did did the best I could with what I had, but I really appreciate her putting it together, and I hope she gets feeling better soon. And again, reminder, next month is going to be update 5.13, so you don't want to miss it. If you know of any other peers and so forth, or anyone else in your organization that you want to be a part of it, make sure they get the invitation. And that's another thing that we should mention too. So if there's anybody in your organization that is not getting the emails or the invitations and they want to be, please reach out to client success. So that information comes from one of our databases that we're filling out when we talk to you and so forth. So if you have a new hire, that doesn't automatically come to us because it's not looking at your Agile Fleet system to see who all the users are. That's not who it goes to. It comes from our internal when we're meeting with customers. So if you have a champion change or a new employee or anything like that, please reach out to us. Give us their email. Phone numbers are optional, but really their name and email is really important to us so we can get them on the mailing list so they don't miss out on these invitations. So it's the invitations to Workshop Wednesdays, the invitations and so forth to Command 2025. It's quarterly newsletters that go out and so forth. So all that information is based internally with a database that we have. So if we don't know you have new employees from talking to us, then that information isn't added. So we want to be able to give that to you the best that we can. So thank you very much. Any other questions that anyone has we can answer? Open forum, you can take your mic off if you want. We've got 8 minutes if anybody has anything that they would like to discuss. All right. Well, if not, I hope you all have a wonderful day. Thanks again for joining us. And happy Passover, happy Easter. Have a great weekend, everyone. And may you stay healthy and happy during the springtime. Have a great day.